think that is the position that gives every woman the right and opportunity to make a choice based on her personal feelings, her religious beliefs, her medical condition. That's what it should be. They worry that they won't be perfect enough. Most young men have very high opinions that they will be perfect enough. I see it as an extraordinary blessing in my life, and I want to be the best grandmother I can be. I certainly have tried throughout my entire life, in both my personal and professional and public experiences, to make the very best choices for me and for my family. Oh, I think the most important lesson you can teach a daughter is for her to feel good about herself and to have a sense of purpose in her life, whatever direction she chooses to go. I very much disagreed with the decision by the Supreme Court. It was deeply disturbing that, in effect, employers could substitute their religious beliefs for women's health needs. This is going to be a big issue in our political campaigns coming up in November and beyond, and I will fight for changes that put the decision-making back where it belongs, in the hands of individual women. I support paid family leave, and I think there needs to be action to move on a national basis to implement that. Right now, politically in our country, that is unlikely to happen because of our Congress. So what we who support paid leave are doing is working at the local level and the state level, and we're very pleased at those cities and states that are adopting paid leave, because California has had paid leave for a number of years, and guess what? Their economy has not collapsed. And so I think the more evidence we have, the better the argument we can make to try to get paid leave on a national level. Well, I am a big believer that we need sensible gun control. I was very proud when my husband was president, when he pushed through legislation that did just that. Unfortunately, it expired, was not renewed. And I think we have to say there must be some provisions for universal background checks to keep guns out of the hands of criminals, of people with some kind of mental disturbances that have led to these terrible massacres, and I will fight for that. I have become very, I guess, used to the fact that there is a double standard, not just in politics, but in life, and women in the public arena, whether it's in business or academia or journalism or any other choice, are going to be judged in ways that men in the same positions are not. So what I always tell young women is to follow the advice of one of my favorite predecessors, Eleanor Roosevelt, who said that when women decide to go into the public arena, they should grow skin as thick as the hide of a rhinoceros, because you do have to be tough in order to deal with the constant criticism that comes your way, and also to take criticism seriously but not personally. Too many women really get overwhelmed by critical comments or analyses that they feel reflect upon them. Unlike men, who often just shrug it off, they become, very unwilling to go further. I've had many young women be reluctant to take additional positions of responsibility because they worry that they won't be perfect enough. Most young men have very high opinions that they will be perfect enough. So I think any woman in any public arena has to be prepared and has to take it with a sense of humor, if you will, because at the end of the day, you should work to be judged on the content of your character, as Dr. King said, and the quality of your work. Well, I am pro-choice because I think that is the position that gives every woman the right and opportunity to make a choice based on her personal feelings, her religious beliefs, her medical condition. That's what it should be, and that's what the Supreme Court decided in the famous case of Roe v. Wade. But there has been a great pushback against the independence of women to be pro-choice. And I think we have to continue to stand up for the reproductive rights of all women and do what we can to try to push back on these unfortunate legislative and regulatory enactments. I'm hoping that we'll have the experience in the United States of a woman president, and if she is married, then we will have a first man or a first mate or whatever we will call him, and we'll learn more about the role that the man can play. We've had this situation with governors in our country, and usually the man continues his work but sometimes takes on some additional responsibilities. So it'll be an interesting experience for our country when finally we get a woman president. I'm thrilled that I'm going to become a grandmother. I really can't wait. I don't judge any other woman's choice as long as it's a responsible choice. I think right now in the United States there are many voices calling for us to withdraw from the world, really have very little involvement, if any, in trying to help other countries, trying to stand up for human rights. And I think America matters to the world, but the world matters to America. And what I've been doing and writing about in my book, Hard Choices, is to make the case as to why we must remain involved. There was quite a debate in our government as to whether I should even go to the conference in Beijing. People in the government, as I recall, were quite worried that I would be too outspoken, too hard on China and other countries. I was determined to go. I made it clear I was going, and afterwards I received compliments from some of the same men who were worried about my going in the first place. So again, it was important to stick to my views and to try to use the platform I had at that point to make a strong statement on behalf of women's rights as human rights. And now we have work still to do, which I am contributing to through the Clinton Foundation to try to determine, given all that we needed to accomplish for the full participation of women and girls, what have we achieved and what are the gaps and what more do we have to do. When I was a 27-year-old attorney doing legal aid work at the law school where I taught in Fayetteville, Arkansas, I was appointed by the local judge to represent a criminal defendant accused of rape. I asked to be relieved of that responsibility, but I was not, and I had a professional duty to represent my client to the best of my ability, which I did. He later pled guilty to a lesser included offense. When you're a lawyer, you often don't have the choice as to who you will represent, and by the very nature of criminal law, there will be those who you represent that you don't approve of, but at least in our system, you have an obligation, and once I was appointed, I fulfilled that obligation. I think Barack Obama proves that you don't have to be a candidate of great wealth to amass the funds necessary to run a modern campaign. He raised more than $1 billion in his campaign because he was attractive to a large segment of our electorate who wanted to contribute to his victory. He ran against someone in 2012 who was personally very wealthy. Did not make any difference. So our system is grueling because you have to raise so much money. But you don't have to start with money in order to raise the money. There are some exceptions where people, Jack Kennedy had a lot of money back in the days of the 1960 election, but he was also very attractive to people who wanted a change. So I don't think it's whether you have money in your own name when you begin to run that matters. It's the fact that any candidate has to spend so much time raising the money necessary to run for president in the United States. I wish we would change that system. Unfortunately, it's become even more difficult because the Supreme Court has ruled that corporations and all kinds of groups can contribute unlimited amounts of money. So it's not only what the candidate running for president has to raise, but he also has to contend with all of the other money that's being raised for and against him. I would like to see reform of our system to finance campaigns. I think that would be good for the country. When I hear someone say that being a grandmother means you can't do your job, I think, well, really, then that should apply to grandfathers, don't you think? But of course it doesn't, and I think there are so many active, vibrant, dynamic women who happen to be grandmothers that all one has to do is look around and see that that is just very old-fashioned, out-of-date thinking. I'm thrilled that I'm going to become a grandmother. I really can't wait. I see it as an extraordinary blessing in my life, and I want to be the best grandmother I can be. I have fought my entire life for women to have the right to make the choices that are best for them. And what I believe in are people making responsible choices. And I certainly have tried throughout my entire life, in both my personal and professional and public experiences, to make the very best choices for me and for my family. I'm very comfortable with having made the choices that I've made, and I would hope that other women think hard and listen to their own hearts as you make difficult decisions. Because there are so many who will give you advice, some of which is perhaps helpful, but a lot of which is more about the person giving the advice than the situation you may find yourself in. So I heartily support women making responsible choices. I don't judge any other woman's choice as long as it's a responsible choice.